Entering 2025, the Chinese economy remains in a serious recession, with layoffs and unemployment occurring everywhere. Walking through major cities such as Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen, you can see numerous homeless young people living precariously under bridges, in pedestrian tunnels, and even in sewers. The middle class on the mainland is also becoming poorer, with many families tightening their spending and saving by purchasing leftover food boxes from restaurants at low prices each day. The trend of consuming leftover food blind boxes is spreading rapidly and has become an inevitable phenomenon in mainland China today. At 3 p.m. on January 1st, 2025, the last restaurant also closed down. I just laid off all the employees, and I promised them that I would settle all their wages before the 8th, including water, electricity, rent, and employee wages, which total about 500,000. Half an hour ago, I made more than 20 calls, but there was still no solution. To be honest, I don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do. After working hard for more than 10 years, now even the last bit of hope is gone. As the mainland economy deteriorates, people's incomes are falling. Many people have no money and are beginning to focus on the practicality of living expenses, accepting the use of leftovers to save money. They know the coming period will be very difficult and full of hunger, so they must spend frugally from now on at all costs. The increase in the sale of leftover blind boxes reflects the declining living standards of the Chinese people, as well as the current difficulties faced by the restaurant business. Recently, a community restaurant in Shanghai launched a blind box of leftovers. It was a big box filled with 2 or 3 kinds of dishes: garlic, soybeans, curry chicken, etc. The dishes were completely random, and a big box cost only 10 yuan. Although it was past mealtime, this community restaurant remained very popular. It turned out that this community restaurant had launched a 10 yuan blind box set meal. Although it is called leftovers, it is not actually leftovers. These are dishes that were cooked in excess at noon and not sold. After mealtime, they would normally be thrown away, which is wasteful and unthrifty. Since the launch of this leftover blind box set meal, the problem of food waste has been addressed, and kitchen waste has also been reduced. The price is very affordable. Dishes that normally cost dozens of yuan are now available for just 10 yuan after the discount. With limited supply, if you come late, there won't be any left, which has earned unanimous praise from everyone. It is understood that the restaurant sells blind boxes 1 hour before closing. The clerk randomly packs the dishes, ensuring a mix of meat and vegetables, and customers have no idea what they will receive. Although it is called a leftover blind box, all the dishes are freshly made, with no actual leftovers, which has attracted many customers. Moreover, the price is economical and affordable. If you can't finish it at noon, you can heat it up at home for dinner. The original intention behind launching the leftover blind box was to reduce waste, but it unexpectedly became popular. In Shenzhen, the cost of a seafood buffet starts at a minimum of 200 yuan. However, the netizen Bai Zhou wrote on the WeChat public account Shenzhen Microtime that a 5-star hotel in Shenzhen, located near Huaqing Lake, launched a leftover blind box buffet voucher. For only 79 yuan, you can enjoy buffet dishes that originally cost over 200 yuan. This is the first time I have eaten a leftover blind box buffet at the Hilton Hotel. Look, there are so many seafood dishes available to eat and take. I'm so greedy, and it's only 79 yuan per person. Netizen Bai Zhou said that he had to try for 3 consecutive days before successfully securing a meal ticket. On the day he went to the restaurant, the dishes were no different from the regular ones, except for the absence of grilled shrimps and abalone. Although the original dining time was limited to 1 hour, the waiter would not rush the customers if they exceeded the time. However, some customers were dissatisfied with the meal and left negative reviews. One customer mentioned that with such a small amount of food, everything had to be grabbed, and even if you managed to grab something, you could only take a bite or 2. This was because the restaurant would not replenish the remaining food. What was left was all there was. In fact, the dishes inside are no different from other cheap buffets. Recently, star-rated hotels in many cities have started offering affordable breakfast buffets for people who are not hotel guests, with options for weekly and monthly card packages. The cheapest buffet meal is priced at just 9.9 yuan. Hotels that have tasted the sweetness of this strategy are now extending it to other time slots, selling leftover blind box buffet meal coupons for dinner or supper. The price of these meal coupons is generally only 1/3 or 1/4 of the original price, sometimes as low as 15.9 yuan. A Beijing netizen managed to grab two 15.9 yuan leftover blind boxes online and took his daughter to pick them up. The store is located in Xi'an Youth Travel Science and Technology Park, Fengtai District, Beijing. I grabbed two blind boxes of leftovers for 15.9 yuan at this store. What was different from my previous purchases was that in other stores, I simply reported my meal number, and the clerk handed me the meal. But here, the clerk not only handed me the meal, but also introduced the name of each bread, the ingredients, and how to eat it in detail. He did not treat me differently just because I bought a leftover blind box. For me personally, the experience was very good. The shop assistant even offered me freshly baked bread to taste, and it didn't feel like she was trying to sell it to me. It felt like someone at home had just made it and was asking you to break off a piece to try first. I wonder if you can understand my description. This store gave me the impression of being exquisite. It doesn't matter whether you buy something or not. It's neither overly enthusiastic nor indifferent. This is the kind of store I would be willing to purchase from at full price, even if there are no leftover blind boxes available in the future. This blogger posted a video titled, "Is it delicious to eat leftovers in Shanghai?" He mentioned that he ordered a leftover blind box, which included one meat dish and two vegetarian dishes, for 15.9 yuan. He thought it was quite cost-effective, although the store was a bit far from his home. He said he had to bike 5.8 kilometers to get there. Leftover blind box. It was still a little warm, with eggplant box, fried fish, scrambled eggs with tomatoes, and unpeeled tomatoes. It was delicious and fresh. I tried the eggplant box, which had a layer of meat inside. I rode 4 kilometers and took the subway for 3 stops. When I got home, the food was still warm, and the surface was crispy. Because the sign said sweet and sour pork ribs, I was looking forward to eating sweet and sour pork ribs, but they didn't include it. I have reservations about the taste of this fish. Personally, I don't particularly like it. I tried a bite of the duck leg. It was too hard. I left some for later. After eating, I summarized that Chinese people might be more sensitive to leftovers, so I changed the name to Magic Bag. In fact, these dishes are like this one. I saw the aunt prepare them on the plate for me on the spot. They are not leftovers from the day before or the morning, but are relatively fresh. I invested 700,000 yuan in Shandong, and the 300 Ping barbecue restaurant opened for 3 months. Today, it officially announced its closure. In fact, our dishes had been verified by a large number of customers, and there was no issue at all. However, the fundamental reason this store couldn't continue is that I fell into 3 major pitfalls, which were fatal. The first pitfall was opening in the off-season. The peak season for grilled meat in Shandong is only June, July, and August. Once the temperature drops in winter, there are few people on the streets. My store opened on October 1st, and the turnover dropped sharply after winter. No matter how good the product is, without new customers, how can old customers come back to buy again? The second pitfall was site selection. Based on my experience in site selection over the past 6 years in catering, if you choose a low-end location in a first-class business district, there will be no problem as long as the traffic is managed well. But I ignored the consumption downgrade, and customer spending habits had changed. Everyone has less money in their hands. It's not easy to go out for a meal. They would rather visit the stores they've eaten at before than try a new one, fearing they might regret it. The third pitfall was over-reliance on traffic, while ignoring cost-effectiveness. When competing with big brands, you lose without cost-effectiveness. It wasn't until today that I realized we did a good job with traffic, but the problem was conversion. Old catering professionals should understand what I mean by these 3 points. The wave of restaurant closures is really happening. Can you imagine what happened on Friday? I didn't have a single table for dine-in and only completed a dozen takeout orders. The takeout sales probably didn't even cover the rent. In mid-October, during National Day, the business was cut in half after that period. Then in November, it became unsustainable. I made a turnover of tens of thousands of yuan in November, which averaged out to about 500 yuan a day, barely enough to cover water, electricity, and rent. But the salary I paid my aunt was just enough for my retirement expenses, so I don't know if I should stick with it now. China's economic misery. Homeless young people sleep everywhere on the streets. In the past, many large factories settled in Shenzhen and Guangzhou, creating numerous employment opportunities and making Shenzhen the third largest city after Beijing and Shanghai. However, Shenzhen's economic situation has worsened, with many people now sleeping on the streets and in front of the station. Official figures released by the Chinese Communist Party show that the number of newly registered unemployed residents in Shenzhen in the first quarter of this year increased by 40% year-on-year and 15% from the fourth quarter of last year. According to the South China Morning Post, this unemployment statistic may be incomplete, as many laid-off workers haven't been recorded or reported, meaning the official number may represent only a portion of the unemployed. Furthermore, the 2024 College Student Employment Research Report, released by the China Zhaopin recruitment platform, shows that, as of mid-October, only 38% of graduates received informal employment notices. A survey by Guangdong University of Technology revealed an employment rate of just 41% for this year's graduates, meaning as many as 60% are unemployed. A recent viral video shows a large number of people, including children, sleeping in the square in front of Longhua bus station in Shenzhen, Guangdong. Chinese netizens believe most of these individuals came from rural areas seeking work, but with jobs scarce and no extra money for basic accommodations, they are forced to sleep on the streets, waiting for opportunities. Some netizens pointed out that this scene occurred as early as last year, and the tragic situation has worsened dramatically this year. Young people across China are sleeping on streets, in pipes, and underground passages. Even cinemas have become makeshift sleeping places. While youth are often associated with vigor and fashion, China's economic decline has left many young people sleeping on the streets due to job scarcity. In July 2024, many people slept in Longhua bus station square in Shenzhen. The video shows numerous individuals sleeping on the ground, with many young people sitting in the square playing on their phones. The video subtitles read, "This year's unemployment rate is higher than in previous years." In previous years, there weren't as many people wandering and sleeping on the streets. This year, sleeping on the ground can be seen everywhere in stations, parks, and squares. It's clear how difficult it is to find a job this year. Some netizens say it will get even harder in the future, with possibly no work at all. It's terrifying to think about. A netizen also posted a photo of a child sleeping near Longhua bus station, showing a young man sitting on the ground, sleeping on his arms. On June 29, 2024, a netizen named Truth Media posted on Twitter that, on June 25th, young people were sleeping under a bridge waiting for recruitment letters from factories. They mentioned that Jiangsu province is now full of stranded students, competing for hourly wages of just 13 to 14 yuan. The number of young people sleeping on the streets has risen in recent years as China's economy continues to decline. Many factories in Guangdong have closed, leading to widespread job losses and forcing people to live temporarily on the streets. According to incomplete statistics, unemployment, bankruptcy, and homelessness in major Chinese cities, such as Shanghai, Beijing, and Chongqing, are similar to what has been recorded in Shenzhen. Hundreds of major Japanese and Taiwanese corporations leave China over fears of being held hostage. Faced with growing threats from Beijing, Japanese, Taiwanese, and other companies are now accelerating their exit from China. On July 23rd, Japan's Nippon Steel announced that it would end its 20-year joint venture with China's Baosteel. The contract will expire at the end of August. Nippon Steel has found it difficult to expand its business in China and plans to shift investment to India and the United States. Nippon Steel also stated that it plans to sell all of its shares in the joint venture with China's Biosteel for $241 million, though the sale will require regulatory approval. During the joint venture, Nippon Steel sued China's Biosteel in a Japanese court in 2021, accusing the Chinese side of stealing Japanese patents on electroplated steel sheets, which China supplies to Toyota for electric vehicles. The case is still ongoing. This is a typical example of foreign companies rushing to withdraw from China. On July 12th, Japanese construction machinery manufacturer Kato Works announced the dissolution and liquidation of its subsidiary that produces and sells hydraulic excavators in Kunshan, Jiangsu. Construction machinery company Kato Nakajima also announced that it would liquidate in August to exit the Chinese market. This trend is spreading from the manufacturing sector to the beauty products sector, with high-end skincare brands such as Shiseido also announcing their withdrawal from the Chinese market. Shiseido's flagship stores in China have recently stopped accepting new orders and have begun to close. Another Japanese company, Bridgestone, has also announced its withdrawal after more than 20 years of operations in China. Bridgestone has ceased producing and selling commercial tires in China and will likely focus on high-performance passenger tires. According to public information, in the past year, most of the globally renowned companies leaving China have been Japanese. These include manufacturing plants of Canon, Sony, Toshiba, and Nikon. Other companies that have exited China include Amazon, LinkedIn, and the R&D center of Astellas Pharmaceuticals. These companies have moved their supply chains to Thailand, the Philippines, or back home.